Welcome back to another absolutely gorgeous morning in my little slice of heaven here. We've got a little bit of rain coming in maybe later today, but beautiful in the meantime. And I think today I'll show you what I'm going to do with the upgrades on the electrical system. Had some trials and tribulations here, and things are not exactly what I ended up doing, but we're going to try and install the Renogy inverter today. And let's just take a quick look. Okay, inside here, this is my 32-foot Americamp fifth wheel trailer that we're renovating as an off-grid camp, and it's coming along pretty good. I've got things, I'm really happy with how they're coming along. We've got a lot of new additions. If you're new here on the channel, go back in the other videos and you'll see. But this is the control system that I've temporarily put in place here as I worked through some issues. And what this is a battery monitor, and then the intent was a solar monitor, and then I added the inverter. This was actually cut on my laser cutter. I designed it in Inkscape and then cut it out on the K40 laser cutter that I've shown on the MKME Lab channel lots of times, so you can check out all the videos on that if you're interested in laser cutting. And so it came out really good. I'm happy with it, except the intent was it was going up there, and I had made a door and mounted it and everything, and then it turned out this wall is impossible to fish wires through without tearing things apart. It was just a pain in the butt. So I gave up on that, and then I was going to mount it down here with a 3D printed bezel that I made. The bezel doesn't fit, and then I think I'm going to scrap that because this inverter is the Freedom 1000 HF 1000 modified sine wave inverter. And that has been working, except it can't power much, and it's a modified sine wave, which is actually a square wave, not a sine wave. And most switch mode power supplies are fine with it, most modern electronics, but things like fans, like fan loading or a vacuum cleaner do not work well with modified sine wave. AC motors do not like square wave. So we're going to get rid of this, and we're going to put the Renogy in today, which means this panel isn't going to work anyway, and the Renogy has kind of a poor panel system. And I've installed the solar, but I didn't tee it in line to monitor it because it's only a 40-watt panel, so I'm scrapping that too. The only thing I'm keeping is our system monitoring here, which is awesome. This has got a big 300 amp shunt, and it monitors my amperage coming out of my battery. So right now we have 3.7 amps coming out, which is actually a lot. Not entirely sure why that's so high. Oh, actually, never mind. It's because we're charging. The shunt gets kind of screwed up when we're charging through it. This meter doesn't handle well going the other way. It doesn't read well. You would think it would just read 3.7, 3.5 amps the other way, but it's not accurate. This is actually charging at approximately 20 amps. So anyway, this is our power meter. When we're running on the battery, it works wonderful. But we're going to get rid of this and well, I'll show you what we're going to put in. Over here, I have basically a freaking substation. This is the Renogy 3000 watt pure sine wave inverter charger. Now the inverter charger is key because in this setup we're getting rid of the converter. I already have the HF 1000 is doing the place of the converter. We need to charge the batteries. This will do that and give us the control to set the batteries to whatever we want. Pretty simple setup, 3000 watt with a huge, like, look at this, max 75 amp charging current. This is crazy. So in order to use that, you're going to have to run massive cabling to it. At 75 amp, you could get away with 4 gauge, no problem. Actually, you could probably run 8. 8 is actually going to be scoped for that, if I remember off the top of my head, but you want to go with a large cable. We only have 8 going to it, so we can't use the 75 amp, but we're not going to charge it that. The peak and the surge and everything, you can look it up, but does it give a surge? No. The surge rating on this is crazy high. Like, I can't even remember. I'll put it on the screen here if I remember, but Basically, this thing weighs about 60 pounds or better. It is stupid heavy. And this is going to replace the HF1000. We'll tee this in, our AC in and out. When I have AC coming in from our generator, it's got a transfer switch inside, same as the HF1000, and it will flip over and just allow the AC from the generator through to the trailer. And when we don't have a generator plugged in, when it doesn't sense incoming AC, it will produce its own at 3000 watts, pure sinusoidal pattern. It's just going to be lovely. This is going to do the trick. Looks like you could put about 1/0 cable in here if you really wanted to. So yeah, pretty cool. This is where it's going to live. And this is the HF1000 that I just put in last weekend that turned out not to be good enough, but it is what I had. I used the original, I think that's 14.2. That's what I'm going to use again today, because that's what's here in the AC system, and that's what's going to be good enough for the trailer. I will end up running new feed wires. These are 8 gauge. We'll use that for today and it'll be fine, but eventually we're going to run heavy duty to the batteries so we can use the full 3 kilowatt. It shouldn't be a problem for today though. We just don't run major loads through it. We're not going to be running the AC with the batteries or anything, so it'll be just fine. And yeah, and behind it is the converter, the original converter that I've disconnected in the panel. Just disconnected the hot wire, and that way it's not battling with the HF1000. And yeah, it worked just fine. Otherwise, the AC would have been coming out of here and then going to the converter, and then the converter would have been in turn trying to charge the batteries again. So yeah, it wouldn't have worked out very good. But yeah, worked out just fine. Everything pretty cool. But this is where that big monster will live. Pretty easy install. There'll be nothing to it. About 10 minutes. Old one's out, new one's sitting in place. Pretty simple. You're going to wire battery positive to here, battery negative to here. I'm going to wire in automotive amplifier style fuse for this, an inline fuse, because that's the one I've got for the 8 gauge that I have. And then later, like I mentioned, I'll go to a 4 gauge or better on this at some point. But for now, it's what I have up here in the middle of nowhere. Pretty simple on the AC side. Input is going to be our power ground, or our hot and our neutral and our ground coming in from our gen set, and then output is just same on the output. And we've got a dry contact for a gen start if we want. A dry contact is just a fancy name for a contact that's run by the microcontroller inside. There's nothing to it. It's dry because it's not tied to anything in the inverter. At least that's the way I've always remembered it. The switch goes to the front panel, and the dry contact we can use to fire up our generator or whatever, or anything else if we want from the inverter. And battery temp sensor is going to wire in here. It's just a PT100, I think, and we'll wire it over to the battery so we don't overheat the batteries when we charge. And then our display. Nothing to it. Easy peasy. Well, it's gotten even nicer while I was working on this, and sure enough, we're there. We have our inverter wired in. Already piled my junk around it, but the fans are clear. Everything is just working tickety-boo, except for the stupid display on it is the dumbest design ever. I knew I was gonna hate it. That remote control setup is just poor. There's nothing on it but an on-off button. But I've run it in here and it's sitting there, and sure enough, it works. It can turn it on and off, which, yay. That's a big box for an on-off button. So kind of a fail on that. It's pretty poor considering the LCD is on the top, and even my crappy Canadian Tire Xantrex one here had the remote display, which was pretty clever. A lot better than that one. At least you just took it out and then ran the same telephone style, or is that Ethernet or telephone style? But yeah, we're there. It's working and doing the business. So camper's up and going. All my AC loads are working. It's charging the batteries right now, and we're just gonna enjoy the rest of the day. I'm gonna try and cut a little grass and hopefully get my new kayak out on the river. I think it's just a beautiful day for it. I hope you guys enjoy. Hope you guys get out and camp this summer and have some fun doing whatever it is you enjoy doing. Cheers, guys. Small edit for in between. I did end up running into town and getting some #2 welding cable. This should be significantly better than this, and if it works, well, I'll go back to concluding the video. If it doesn't, I'll keep on going, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be significantly better than than the wire I had. So #2 welding cable, away we go. Small interjection, I did end up scrapping that cable and going with #2 welding cable I got from my local TSC. Would have rather go bigger yet, but this is all they had, so that other stuff is just simply too small. So concept's the same through the entire video, except I swapped this out for #2 with #2 lugs and soldered connections straight to my battery fuse, the A&L fuse. So there we go.